Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Brendan Mitchell, and I am the principal of Oceanside High School. I certainly understand that many of you may be experiencing some anxiety in regard to this upcoming school year, and our goal with this presentation is to alleviate some of those concerns. If you did join me last night, this is the same presentation as last night. You are welcome to continue watching, but I just wanted to give you that information. I can assure you that our staff has been working tirelessly to prepare for the upcoming year, both through the lens of health and safety and through the lens of academics. The reality is that there is not one perfect solution to our current situation, and we are always willing to review, reflect, and reassess, but I am confident that we are ready to go for the upcoming school year. I want to thank each of you for your patience and dedication as well. As a parent myself, I certainly understand where your questions and concerns come from, and I'm here hopefully to answer those questions as well. I'm joined by Dr. Zirianis, Mr. McKeel, and Ms. Mason as well, and they'll be helping us through this presentation too. I know that I've spoken to several of you over the phone or email already, and I remind you that you are always welcome to contact me directly for any follow-up. I wanted to start this morning with a quick overview of our goals in planning and preparing for the upcoming school year. Of course, the health and safety of our students and our staff was the top priority. However, we also know how important it is for students to feel connected and supported, whether they are in the building or learning at home. The social emotional wellness of our students continues to be a key component in all of our decision making. Additionally, we knew that whatever the format, our instruction had to be engaging, participatory, developed through research and good practice, and drive the education of our students forward. Our curriculum remains relevant, standards-based, while preparing our students for all future assessments. Our teachers are extraordinary. Our teachers are dedicated. Our teachers are confident as they head into this year that these goals will be met throughout the school year. Now, as you know, the Oceanside School District was required to develop various plans on reentry to submit to New York State. Our current plan for the beginning of the year is to open with hybrid learning, which consists of two cohorts, blue and white, attending school on an alternating basis. Cohort A, our blue cohort, will attend school on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and Cohort B, our white cohort, will attend on Thursdays and Fridays. Mondays will alternate, resulting in each cohort attending in-person instruction 2 to 3 times a week. Now, a quick note on cohorts before I continue. Even cohort groups were created through software in our Infinite Campus system. This allowed for a balanced split of both building-wide and specific classes. Unfortunately, as this balance affords us the ability for greater social distancing and a safer building, we will not be able to accommodate cohort switches among students. We apologize for this inconvenience. Now, additionally, Oceanside High School has offered the all-remote learning option for any parent or student that chose to do so. These students will remain home each day of the week and complete their learning through a combination of synchronous, that's live, and asynchronous instruction. Finally, we are also prepared with a fully remote distance learning plan should we be forced to close school at any time. Student schedules and their cohorts will be available to students on the portal on Wednesday, August 26th. That's tomorrow. Now, in addition to the upcoming schedules and cohort groups, a special student parent handbook has been developed for this coming school year that includes all necessary information on the hybrid distance learning plan, including specific information as it relates to health and safety. Additionally, we have created an informational video that is available to the community that reviews these guidelines and the changes to our physical space. So as I mentioned, we know that we are starting the school year with our hybrid model, and this is a glimpse of what this will look like for students. You can see here the alternating day plan, and students will be given a copy of this model, and we will have frequent opportunities and notices throughout our school days and on our website to keep students informed. Now, our arrival procedures remain mostly similar to previous years, except that we have added an additional entrance at the auditorium. Students will not be allowed to congregate in hallways before school starts, but rather we will have designated socially distant locations around the building for them to wait prior to the school day beginning. Breakfast will still be available to students in the morning. Our cafeteria has been redesigned in a socially distant setup that allows students to take off their masks when sitting to eat. Now, in terms of lunch as a whole, we are maintaining an open campus for 11th and 12th graders. Further, I've received some questions about students whose schedules do not include a lunch period. Unfortunately, for safety reasons, we cannot allow these students to eat in class this year. However, we are working on a system with teachers that will allow for these students to have time for eating as it works in their schedule. Now, hallways have been marked and indicated to ensure smooth traffic flow with one-way traffic on either side of the hallway and indicators to keep the middle of our hallways clear. Some stairwells will be one-directional. Further, we will not utilize lockers to begin the school year. Students will be required to carry personal belongings with them throughout the day, although we are looking for ways in which they will be able to drop off musical instruments should they have one. It will be imperative that students bring Chromebooks to school each day and have them fully charged and ready to go. Now, we recognize that additional time may be needed for student transitions, especially at the beginning of the school year as students familiarize themselves with schedules and traffic. We will continue to monitor traffic flow at the start of the year and will make any further adjustments as needed. We recognize that some students may be late to class at the beginning of the school year, and we're working to, again, monitor those traffic flow patterns and adjust as needed. Now, with our hybrid models, our classrooms will be on average at 50% capacity, with most regular classes having approximately 15 students in the room, but that could be dependent on social distancing ability. Desks will be marked to indicate appropriate social distancing. For the majority of our classrooms, all desks will remain in there. This provides additional indicators of social distancing and allows for additional barriers. In some of our smaller classrooms, though, we have removed certain desks to allow for more spacing. Please note that individual classroom desks will not have barriers. However, we will have barriers set up in certain high traffic areas of the school. As a reminder, and this is something I'll probably say frequently throughout this presentation, masks will be required in all classrooms during instruction. There will be opportunities for mask breaks in designated areas of the school. I have received some questions beforehand about how PE classes are going to work this year. These classes will be held outside whenever possible. To start the year, we will not utilize any equipment, but rather focus on fitness-related activities. In the event that weather does not allow for outdoor classes, we have several designated spaces for these classes to take place inside with appropriate social distancing. Similarly, all additional social distancing requirements will be followed for orchestra, choral, dance, and theater students. In some cases, the location of some of these classes will change for safety purposes. In continuing with our hybrid model, I want to take a moment and focus on what these days will look like when your child is at home. Our goal here was to increase student accountability as if it were a regular day of school, while also being mindful of research and best practices on remote learning. Students will still follow the regular OHS bell schedule and still be responsible for attendance in all of their classes. Classes will consist of both synchronous, that's live, and asynchronous instruction with their teachers. More on that in a bit. It's highly recommended that our students create a designated space at home when possible for their remote days at school. Now, we'll have a snapshot calendar on the OHS website that will help students and families keep track of the hybrid schedule throughout the beginning of the year. We recognize that this is new and will make all efforts to communicate information as it becomes available. As I previously mentioned, we wanted to create a schedule that provides structure and accountability for students, while also being mindful of recommendations on extended screen time for students. We truly feel that this schedule allows for this. Throughout the day, students will be accountable for all of their classes with several real-time connection, RTC, something you're going to hear more of in a minute, with their regular teachers, real-time connections with their regular teachers. Some assignments will even be due in real time. Remember, this is not by any means a day off from school. It is simply a shift in where and how the learning is taking place. School is still in session. In a moment, Dr. Zirianis will further explain real-time connections and the hybrid model. However, first, I wanted to provide you with some overall updates on health and safety. We are asking for your help and the help of all families to monitor for any signs and symptoms of COVID-19 from home and to complete a parent assurance that speaks to this. We recognize that there are some regular health issues, such as allergies, that may result in some similar symptoms, and your assurance there will be critical in that area. Further, again, please remember that masks will be required in classrooms and in transitions at OHS for all students and staff. We will establish mask break locations and protocol for students. If a student refuses to wear a mask, they will be escorted to a socially distant location in the building, and a parent guardian will be notified. Hand sanitizer will be available in all classrooms and at various freestanding hand sanitizing stations in the school. We have made the decision to temporarily close department resource centers to students at the beginning of the year as we examine and assess traffic and our social distancing capabilities in these spaces. However, teachers will still be available through virtual extra help for both students in school and at home, and we are working to create virtual resource centers for students. Additionally, our testing center will still be available to students throughout the day. Now, throughout the summer, the HVAC team here at OHS has opened up and serviced every univent in the building. This process includes cleaning, vacuuming, and flushing the system, testing the dampers, disinfecting, and changing, updating filters as needed. Additionally, our univents and exhaust fans will now remain in occupied mode for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's based on a CDC recommendation, and this will help increase ventilation of the building. We've also had a dedicated window team completing a building-wide audit and review of all windows to ensure that they open at the maximum allowable height for the bottom portion of the window, and that all top sections of the windows will be able to open and provide additional ventilation and circulation in the classrooms. In addition to the normal cleaning procedures each night, the district has designated and trained a specific team for additional sanitizing and disinfecting. Further, the district will utilize electrostatic sprayer technology for the daily disinfecting, sanitizing that must occur. Guests will be strictly monitored at OHS, and we are attempting to conduct all meetings, including parent meetings, virtually whenever possible. All guests to the building will be required to wear a mask, and they must complete a health screening prior to entering the building. Further, we are establishing a secondary nurse's office for those students that are exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19. And Oceanside School District released a document this past Friday that addresses all procedures for when a student or staff member has COVID-19 or was exposed to someone with COVID-19. We will work closely with Nassau County, the Department of Health, and New York State, of course, to follow all protocol. Now, at this point, what I'd like to do is turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Zirianis, and she'll explain a little bit more this idea of real-time connection, the RTC that we'll be following in our hybrid model. So Dr. Z, when you are ready, go for it.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell, and welcome back to all our families. We're so excited to welcome our students back. It's been a long time since we've seen them in person. So I'm just going to review a few things about our real-time connection periods. These periods are the periods that your children will have at home on the days that they are learning from home in our hybrid model. So just to give you a sense, you'll be hearing this term RTC a lot here today, probably from your teachers at our virtual back to school night that will take place in September. And I'm sure from your children once they come home after the first few days of school. So we learned a lot from our experience in March through June. And while that model was different, where it was all students and teachers learning and teaching from home, we must remember that the hybrid model, the advantage of the hybrid model is that your children will be in school on any given week, 2 to 3 days in person with their teacher. But on those days that they are learning from home, we wanted to create a system where we knew those kids, your kids and our kids, would have an opportunity to really connect with their peers and to really connect with their teachers. So our model this year is going to be these RTC periods. And these RTC periods will allow our students to feel connected to their school on the days that they're home, connected to their peers, and feel connected and supported in real time by the teacher. One thing that we heard from students and all the feedback that we did following our experience in March through June was that it was a little frustrating because they didn't feel like they could get instantaneous responses from their teacher when they were learning from home. And this was something that we did to try to help them through that process. We know that our teachers are going to be utilizing many different tools. It's not going to look the same. We wouldn't want it to look the same. We want our students to have very different experiences from class to class. So our teachers are going to be utilizing very different tools to make these real-time connections. But we know the ultimate goal for all of these real-time connections is going to be to advance our students' learning while they're home, to move the curriculum forward, really to help our kids maintain a positive and productive schedule. One of the things that we learned from our experience this past spring was that it was really hard when students were home for them to stay in a school schedule. They were getting up at noon. I mean, you know, as parents, I'm a parent of an Oceanside High School student. They were getting up at noon, going to bed at 3, and kind of attending to their schoolwork when they were ready to do that. We created this RTC schedule so that while students are learning from home, they are actually following the school schedule. So they need to be, and you have to help us with this, our partnership here is going to be important. They need to be logging into their Google Classroom at the start of period 1 every day, which means they need to be up and at their computer at 7:50. And they need to be following their schedule for 9 periods a day, checking in with their learning live, because from period to period on certain days, they are going to have assignments that are due in real time. And I saw one of the questions that was submitted asked about whether they would have to check in every period, whether they had an RTC or not. Absolutely. They're going to be checking their own attendance and checking in period by period, even if it isn't an RTC period. This will help to keep our children productive. We want to also make sure that by checking in with the kids at home, that we're maintaining that social and emotional connection for them. Attendance is going to be a daily thing. Again, even if there is no RTC period, know up front that there are no scheduled RTC periods, obviously for lunch or physical education, because we are hoping that our physical education courses can be conducted outside. But that does not mean that on the days that students are home, that they should not be checking in for attendance during their physical education periods. Those teachers will be posting videos and other activities to help keep your children physically fit from home. So the physical education period is still important. Please know that regardless of whether that day your child has a certain RTC period in a class, there will be work posted for every single period that they have a class. So they are responsible for checking Google Classroom in real time. And again, I want to stress that. Some teachers are going to ask for their assignments to be submitted at the end of a period, not at the end of the day, just like they would expect it if your child was sitting in the classroom on a particular day. So Google Classroom is going to be the go-to for everyone. Children need to check that regularly, and that's where the RTC schedules will be posted for individual classes. And please note that attendance will be required. Our teachers have been getting a lot of professional development in this area. They are expert and so ready to take this challenge on. We know it's going to be a great school year, despite the school year looking a little bit different than it has in the past.
Thank you, dear Dr. Zarianis. I wanted to take a moment for those parents and families that have selected the all remote option for your child to start the school year. As a reminder, we did ask for this commitment through early January, to commit to the schedule through early January, as our cohort balances and classroom construction were established based on these requests. I'm happy to say that our all remote students will still be able to maintain those important connections with their regular teachers, with their regular classes, and with their regular classmates. All of our all-remote students will also follow the hybrid schedule. This will mean that they will have a combination of asynchronous and synchronous live teaching opportunities, and that all of those RTC periods, those real-time connections that Dr. Zirianis just spoke about, will also be available to them at home. In this way, we can ensure that same accountability, that same connectedness for these students. We created this approach to remote instruction as it will allow for these students, like I said, to maintain the connections with teachers and classmates alike and still feel like an important, valued member of Oceanside High School. That was one of our goals with our all-remote students. We want to maintain their connection with Oceanside High School. Now, in the event that your child chooses to return to school in January, by following this hybrid schedule, they will be able to seamlessly return to classes with the same teachers and classmates that they have worked with since September. There will be more information coming for our all-remote students, and we will have a special all-remote students meeting for parents next week to further answer some of those questions that you might have in this regard. Now, we recognize also the importance of extra and co-curricular opportunities for our students, as this helps foster connection and community among all of our students. Those elements of social emotional wellness that are so important. Some of those connections come right through our virtual clubs for sure. So to start the year, all clubs will be through a virtual platform for a variety of reasons. We will continue to assess and explore when we are able to return to in-person meetings when safe and reasonable. Extra help will still be available to students, both at home and in the building, also through the virtual format to start the year. Teachers will post their extra help schedules at the start of the year. Now, we continue to await further guidance from Governor Cuomo and New York State in regard to athletics. I know that there were some announcements about sports resuming soon by the end of September. However, there is an additional meeting happening at the state level today, probably at this moment, that hopefully we assume more clarification will come out in athletics. But recognize we do know how important clubs are. We know how important athletics are, and we're going to do our best to get that up and running as soon as safe and possible. Now, I also wanted to look at our remote schedule, and just to be very, very clear, this schedule that you're looking at now, the remote schedule, is if we are all fully learning from home. In other words, if something happens and we are forced a full building closure, this is the remote schedule that students will follow. So again, I'll pass it over to Dr. Z for a further explanation of the rationale and background of the remote schedule.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. Yes, this schedule again was crafted with a lot of information that we gathered from parents, from our staff, from students in their experiences through March, from March through June. So we created this remote schedule. And again, as Dr. Mitchell said, this is the schedule that will be activated if at any point we have to close fully as a building and go back to learning from home. As you can see, this schedule has a slightly different school day. From 9 o'clock it starts to 2:50 in the afternoon. It runs Monday through Friday, no 6-day cycle for this schedule, just like our hybrid schedule. But what you'll notice is that all of the highlighted periods, approximately 4 per day for your child, because on Tuesdays and Fridays, there's 5 periods, but one of those is typically the lunch period. They will get 4 periods of fully live instruction from their teacher, while the rest of the periods that day will be asynchronous. And then, of course, that shifts to the next day where those other periods will become live instruction. So there'll be a wonderful balance of synchronous and asynchronous, wonderful opportunities for small group instruction, which will be great to support our students through this. We'll even be doing virtual resource center through this model. And really, this model was created to make sure that we were very cognizant of screen time balance and screen time fatigue, not wanting our students to learn from their computer 9 periods a day if we were forced into this model for whatever reason. So that is the fully remote model.
Yeah, again, just to clarify, and I know Dr. Z mentioned it, this is the fully remote model if our entire building were to close. Now, we know also that the support for our Oceanside High School families will be critical this year in terms of academics, of course, technology support, and mental wellness. our dedicated team of PPS workers, along with Ms. Mason, our school counselors, our social workers, our school psychologists, are setting up various opportunities to connect with students both in the building and from home. Those networks of support will be for both students in the building and at home, of course, as well. Additionally, we are incorporating an increased partnership between our PPS team and our physical education and health teachers in order to facilitate more lessons on mental health and wellness. As a reminder, we have various virtual help opportunities accessible to you and our students in each of these areas. Our back to school night will be virtual this year, and we are currently exploring how to make this as meaningful and informative as possible for you. Now, another note on school counselors, we know how critical their role is for our students, especially many of our upperclassmen as they begin to navigate the college process. Please know that they will continue to play this important role this year, both virtually and in person. Before I continue with my portion of the presentation, I did want to send it over to Ms. Mason just briefly, just so she could further explain that virtual wellness center, something we implemented at the end of last year. Ms. Mason, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to say thank you again for joining us this morning and taking the time to be with us. We are so happy to welcome you guys back and to welcome your children back. Everyone has been working so hard to try to make the school experience as best as possible, whether it be in the hybrid model or the virtual model. So please know that we have the best interest of all our families and children at the center of all of our hearts, because most of us are parents ourselves. So we want the best for you and your children. And part of that was putting together the virtual wellness center that came out in the spring that was sent out, I believe, via email. And it's a way for families and students and staff to tap into resources to help with health and wellness and everyday, healthy living strategies, coping strategies that, can help us get through some difficult times, unprecedented times that we've all been through lately. Things that you'll find in the virtual wellness center are resources like meditation strategies, mindfulness, breathing, yoga, some art strategies, some really peaceful music that you can listen to, some apps you might want to put on your own personal devices that we have compiled from different staff members that have used them, or even students who have really benefited from the use of these apps. The Virtual Wellness Center is going to be made available to all of you, will continuously be updated, and is really a great resource for you and your children, as well as our staff. So I hope you really make use of it. Thank you so much, Dr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Ms. Mason. I appreciate that. Now, we do have a couple different orientations this year, different than years past, perhaps. Our virtual freshman orientation is this Friday, August 28th. This program will give our freshman students an opportunity to work virtually with their school counselors, meet some teachers and their fellow classmates to learn more about the high school. Now, additionally, we are conducting an extended orientation from Tuesday, September 8th through Friday, September 11th. You will receive more information on this once you receive your child's schedule and cohort group. Again, schedules and cohort groups will be available tomorrow, Wednesday. However, please note that your child will attend for a full day of school on one of these days. So once you, once you have your schedule and your cohort, you'll be able to look at this, and we'll send this out again, of course, to know which day your child will be coming in. Now, my hope is that we've answered many of your frequently asked questions through the course of this presentation and our presentation last night. However, we recognize that some of you may have additional questions. So some of you have been entering questions in real time as we've presented. And please know that at the conclusion of today's meeting, by the end of today, I'll be sending out a frequently asked questions list available to parents based on the questions from last night, based on the questions from this morning, and any questions that have come in the days prior. So we really want to make sure you're well informed and that you have all the answers to those questions. Like Ms. Mason mentioned, we're all parents ourselves. We certainly understand where those questions are coming from, and we want to do our best to make sure you feel comfortable and confident starting the year. I am confident in our school plan, both health and safety wise and instructionally. But of course, if I can help or be of any further assistance, please let me know. At this point, what we'll do is we'll turn, I'll ask both Dr. Zirianis, Mr. McKeel, and Ms. Mazin, if we have further questions that have come in during the course of this presentation this morning. If there's any we can answer right now, we will try to do so. Otherwise, like I said, I'll be sending out a frequently asked questions worksheet for the community later on today. So Dr. Z or Ms. Mazin, is there anything else we can answer for our viewers today?
Dr. Mitchell, we have some families that would like a little bit more clarification on mask breaks, whether or not they'll be permitted in the classroom, if so or if not, where those mask breaks can take place, how students can go about asking for them. So if you could just go back to mask breaks and give a little bit more information on that to the families, please.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Mazin. So mask breaks, are that opportunity to lower the mask and get a fresh breath of air. What we want to be, mindful of is where those mask breaks are occurring. So what we've done is we've set up certain mask break stations throughout the building, and we're working on developing the best protocol for how those mask breaks can be conducted. We want to be mindful of how much, mask breaks happen inside of classrooms, because that's the instructional piece, and that's where we have, the most congregating of students. So we're still working on the protocol, but there will be mask break opportunities for students throughout the day.
Dr. Mitchell, can you talk about college meetings for seniors and how we're going to keep the class of 2021 on track with college essays, college applications, teacher letter of recs, a lot of questions just about our seniors, obviously, in this difficult year.
Sure. And I know, a few different things on seniors, and that's when another question that came in is those special events for seniors as well. And of course, we want to be mindful of how special senior year is in particular for students. And we want to, whenever safe and possible, we want to look at those events that happen throughout the year and do our best to recognize and celebrate all of their accomplishments over the past 4 years. Now, that being said, our counselors are excellent. And a lot of these same normal procedures happen every year in terms of the college process and getting them ready. Now, we're looking at a combination of both virtual and in-person meeting with our counselors, but they're certainly aware of that stress and perhaps anxiety as it relates to a student's senior year in this setting and in this climate right now. So our counselors are preparing. They're actually in a meeting right now to discuss some of those questions you just brought up, but they'll be ready. I'm confident they'll be ready, and they'll help your student get ready for college or career, whatever the choice may be.
Dr. Mitchell, the families are asking if the desks will be sanitized between periods.
No, for those of you who may have watched Dr. Harrington's last night meeting, desks cannot be sanitized between classes for a variety of reasons. They will, of course, be sanitized, at the end of the day, every day, sanitized, disinfected with the electrostatic sprayer that I mentioned previously, but they won't be disinfected between classes. All classrooms will have hand sanitizer stations within the classroom, and there are freestanding hand sanitizers throughout the building. We, of course, recommending students hand sanitize both before and after classes.
Dr. Mitchell, I think I can answer this one, but families are asking what happens on days that their child is scheduled to go in, but school is closed for a holiday. So we are carefully looking at that calendar. And as Dr. Mitchell, perhaps you can scroll back to that actual cohort calendar. We've accounted for the fact, like on a particular Monday, if a certain cohort was due in, we make sure to bring that cohort in on the following Monday. So we don't skip it. This is going to be a new year, navigating a very new schedule. The policies we've used in the past might not apply. So you're definitely going to want, these are going to be posted on our OHS website. You're definitely going to want to follow these calendars month to month. We're also going to make adjustments when we get to our November holidays and our December holidays to make sure that our students in both cohorts get an equal amount of time in school. So we will be making adjustments where appropriate. There are also questions, Dr. Mitchell, about masks and whether students are going to be able to take them off to speak so they can be heard during class time.
Masks must be worn during class time. That's going to be a requirement building wide. Like I said, there will be opportunities for mask breaks. We will have some areas set up throughout the building that are socially distanced where their masks may be able to come off, especially, of course, in the cafeteria when they're eating. The cafeteria has been set up differently to allow for the appropriate social distancing for students to take off their masks and eat when they are sitting down. However, masks remain on in the classroom.
Dr. Mitchell, some of the Honor Society requirements involve obtaining volunteer hours, and our students sometimes obtain those hours through volunteering their time at our school events. Being that there are no school events, how can students obtain some of those volunteer hours?
That's a great question. It's something we're going to have to continue examining, looking for additional or somewhat out of the box opportunities for student hours. As stated in the question, currently our after-school activities are canceled for now, but we'll be thinking outside the box on how we can get those requirements met for all those students.
And Dr. Mitchell, can you address two things? Any information you can share on our DLT policy, as well as how will courses like art be handled in the virtual environment? And science labs, I apologize, both art and science labs in the virtual environment.
Okay, those are all great questions. So, in the student handbook that will be the special student handbook that's been created that we'll be sending out shortly after schedules and cohorts go out, there will be a little bit of a discussion about the DLT policy. The DLT, for those of you who aren't sure, is deficient learning time, and that's somewhat based on absences from a class. Now, being mindful of our current state of the world, where some students may be forced to quarantine, even if they're not feeling or experiencing any illness, we are looking for opportunities within our hybrid schedule where those students still can participate at home. But certainly the DLT policy is something that we're examining and being mindful of, as there will be certain requirements related to students staying at home. As far as the lab situation, we're working closely with Dr. Christensen, the director of our science team, in terms of ways we can get those lab requirements met for both students safely in the building and for students completing courses virtually or all remote. The last question was about art, I believe, in that one. So we have made some changes to our art classrooms. We know that in those studio art classes, typically they would be sitting at tables. Obviously, this would not work very well for social distancing purposes. So at least temporarily, we've replaced the tables in those art rooms with desks that can be socially distanced apart. And we continue to explore the safest, best way to handle materials for students, both in the classroom and for those students to be able to participate virtually from home. So there's more on that to come for sure.
Dr. Mitchell, can you go back a little bit and kind of give some clarification on that extended orientation? When students are obligated to come in for that orientation, when they will find out about that orientation, and when the official first day of school will be?
Sure. So the extended orientation, as I mentioned, I wanted to put this schedule of events up here on the screen for you to see. But of course, this won't really kind of fully come together until you receive your child's schedule and cohort assignment tomorrow. So when you do receive that, obviously you'll know which grade your child is in, and then simply you'll look whether they are in the blue cohort group or the white cohort group. So for example, if you have a 9th grade student who is in the white cohort group, they'll be coming in on Wednesday, September 9th for a full day of instruction following their odd day schedule. If you have a child who's in 12th grade in the blue cohort group, they would be coming in Thursday. I wanted to put this here just so you had this idea of what it will look like. But again, I recognize until you know your child's schedule and your child's cohort group, this won't fully come together. So in conjunction with schedules and cohort groups coming out tomorrow, you'll also receive some updated information on our extended orientation. And just to speak briefly about extended orientation, I know I mentioned this a little bit in our welcome back video, but the idea with this extended orientation, and this was one of the suggestions from New York State in their 145-page guidance on safe schools, was this ability to have an extended orientation for students to get ready for policies and procedures, new entryway, for example, new hallway, traffic patterns, to give them that opportunity to familiarize themselves. And this way, there'll be even smaller groups, which will allow us also the opportunity to monitor traffic flow as well and make any adjustments and changes as needed. in addition to that, they're going to be able to make those initial connections with teachers, which we know are so critical. And also they'll be able to kind of just get back in the flow of getting back to school. So our first full day of instruction then would be on Monday, September 14th, as illustrated here. I just want to get that schedule back up again. So Monday, September 14th, we'll start with a blue cohort day. Our full blue cohort, everybody in a blue cohort, would be here on Monday 14th for following their odd class schedule.
Just a question, Dr. Mitchell, I think this came up last night too, the concern that without Regents exams last year, if students would still qualify for advanced Regents diplomas this year, if they were graduating.
Yes, thanks. As of now, Regents exams for this year are on as scheduled. For those students who were enrolled or were expected to take Regents exams last year, we know that there was an exemption by the state to essentially exempt students from those Regents exams. So they'll still be on track for those diplomas.
Dr. Mitchell, can you go over whether or not procedures will have changed for any student that needs to leave the building for doctor's appointments or any other for any other reasons? Will the procedures for the building have changed?
Well, for the most part, in terms of procedures, one thing we want to be most mindful of is letting visitors into our building. So we would set up different procedures where we try to eliminate or limit as much as possible people coming into the building. So for the most part, for those procedures of students leaving the building, those will essentially remain the same, except we might add an additional element where we don't have to have parents coming into the building to request that pickup, where it's something we can, complete outside of the building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're good. That seems to be it with the questions. I think, right, Ms. Mason, we covered them all.
Well, I just want to thank again. First I want to thank Dr. Zirianis, Ms. Mason, and Mr. McKeel for joining us here today. It's really an amazing team of educators, teachers, administrators, clerical, security. Our whole staff across the board has been working tirelessly this summer to really prepare this building for the health and safety, for instruction. And again, we hope that we are answering your questions. We hope that you feel some of the same confidence that we are feeling as we begin to start our year. As I mentioned, just want to say it one more time, one of these meetings, whether the one from last night or the one from this morning, will be recorded and posted and available for those of you or anybody who was not able to watch this. We do have our informational video that was sent out last week as well. And finally, again, I'll be compiling a list of frequently asked questions from parents, from the community, and putting that out as soon as possible based on the questions that came in this morning and those questions from last night and the previous weeks. I really thank everybody again for their patience, flexibility, and support as we near the beginning of a school year. I'm super excited for it to start. I'm super excited to see students in the building again, and just know that we'll continue to monitor, reassess, reflect, and do our best we can for your children. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, and thank you, everybody.